Hi, I'm Devin from Careerified. Welcome back to my home office. Here we are again. This week, I would like to talk about informational interviews. Now, if you've never done one before, informational interviews can be an amazing source of information on careers, and not nearly enough people do them. The idea is that as a job seeker, instead of going into a formal job interview scenario where you're being asked a bunch of questions, you get to flip the script a little bit, put the interview shoe on the other foot, so to speak. And so as a job seeker, you find somebody who's doing some sort of work that you find interesting, and you go ask them questions about it. If you have kids kind of hanging around at home a little bit more than you would like these days, this might be something you want to encourage them to do. I would say there are some particularly amazing benefits to doing this, especially when you're young, and to start to develop this as a skill set. So first off, informational interviews are a lot less formal than sort of a typical job interview. And so for a teenager or a 20-something who maybe doesn't have a ton of experience in a job interview scenario, it can be a lot less stressful way of developing some of those more professional communication skills. Second, a lot of people get some just amazing insider info from doing this. The idea is to get somebody's personal experience with that career path and kind of find out some tips and tricks that you wouldn't know otherwise. So some people go into them and find out amazing things that make them super excited to get started in that career. And sometimes people find out stuff that makes them want to run as far as they can in the opposite direction. And either way, you can imagine, if your kids are in their teens, if they're in their 20s, that's hugely beneficial information to make more informed career and education decisions. The last thing to point out here is your kids are also starting to develop, networking skills. Which actually is a skill set. It's something that you need to practice and get good at. And they're also starting to grow their professional network from a young age, which will benefit them hugely in the long run in terms of job prospects later on. So a few tips if your kids are going to go ahead with this. First off, book 20 minutes with that person and stick to it. Even if the conversation is amazing, you want to cut it off at 20 minutes, stick to what you said you would do, and reschedule to meet another time at a later date to keep that conversation going. Number 2, ask about things you can't find out elsewhere. So some of the favorite questions I will often direct people to use are things like, what is something that you do in your work that you didn't expect would be part of it? Or what did you want to be when you were a kid or you were a teenager? And how does that relate to what you do now? Or, and actually this one should be included every single time, is there somebody else that you think I should talk to about this career? Get them to refer you to the next person. Always a benefit. Next tip, don't bring a resume. I know some people are really big on, you can bring your resume and just ask them to give you some tips and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I think that's a really, really bold move for a first meeting. So even if you have some experience, your kids have some experience in the field or they're studying or whatever, I would say maybe not at a first meeting, but if there's a great connection in a subsequent meeting, those are definitely questions they can broach. Don't ask about salary. I guess it sort of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. And lastly, do get a business card or their most up-to-date contact information in some kind of format. And that's just to, first off, follow up with a thank you. And second, to keep that conversation going using, the contact information that that person wants your kid to use going forward. Informational interviews are super scary when you first start doing them, but starting is the first hurdle to jump. And after that, they get easier and easier to jump. So that is my tip for this week. Encourage your kids to try doing informational interview or maybe 2 informational interviews in the next few months and see what they can find out. See what kinds of insider info they can come out with. Thanks so much for joining me. I will see you here next week for a new tip. You take good care.